Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are cracking open the massive, explosive finale to Michael Bay's original Transformers trilogy, Dark of the Moon. This is the one that rewrote history, dropped a jaw-dropping betrayal, and, oh yeah, became an absolute billion-dollar beast at the box office. So, here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the huge conspiracy at the heart of the story, then get into that shocking betrayal and the massive final battle. After that, we're pulling back the curtain on the insane production and, of course, that billion-dollar legacy. All right, so let's jump right in. The whole foundation of this movie, the entire premise, is built on this really cool historical conspiracy. It basically suggests that one of our greatest moments in history was all a lie. The movie kicks off with this wild idea. What if the whole space race in the 60s, USA versus the Soviets, what if that wasn't the real story? What if the real reason we rushed to the moon was to check out an alien ship that crash-landed there? And according to this secret history, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin weren't just up there to plant a flag and grab some rocks. Nope. Their real mission was top secret. Find the wreckage of the Ark, the Autobot ship, and recover what was inside, which turned out to be the legendary Sentinel Prime, the old leader of the Autobots, just waiting to be woken up. So Optimus brings his old mentor back to Earth and revives him with a matrix of leadership. And this is where the story takes a hard right turn into some really dark territory. It all comes down to this powerful and frankly terrifying piece of tech that Sentinel created. So Sentinel reveals his invention, these things called the pillars. They can create a space bridge, basically a giant portal to teleport stuff across the galaxy. His plan? Use it to save their home planet, Cybertron. Sounds good, right? Well, there's a pretty big catch, and this is where the betrayal really kicks in. And here's the twist. It's an absolute gut punch. Sentinel reveals he'd made a secret deal with Megatron ages ago. He just straight up murders Ironhide, one of the original Autobots, right there on the spot. He steals the pillars and announces his real plan: enslave all of humanity and use Earth as spare parts to rebuild Cybertron. The whole game just changed. And how does he justify this? Well, he drops this super famous line. For anyone who's a sci-fi fan, this is a huge wink to the audience. The actor who voices Sentinel is Leonard Nimoy, and he uses the most iconic line from his other famous character, Spock from Star Trek. It's a really clever, kind of chilling meta moment. Okay, so the Autobots get kicked off Earth and everyone thinks their ship was blown up. With them out of the picture, this is when all hell breaks loose. Sentinel and the Decepticons unleash their entire hidden army and they take over Chicago, turning it into their own personal fortress to start the invasion. The last hour of this movie is just pure chaos. Non-stop urban warfare. You've got Shockwave's giant driller just shredding skyscrapers. Then, plot twist, the Autobots show up. They fake their deaths and they're back to fight. There are these super tense moments, like Bumblebee almost getting executed, and all this is happening while Cybertron itself starts appearing in our sky. It's just insane. So it all comes down to this final brutal showdown. Sentinel literally rips off Optimus's arm and is about to deliver the killing blow. But then Megatron, who's been played this whole time, attacks Sentinel to try and get his top spot back. What happens next is kind of shocking. Optimus doesn't team up with him, he kills Megatron and then turns around and executes the wounded Sentinel. No mercy. So that's the story on screen, but how in the world did they pull this off? Let's go behind the scenes, because the story of making this movie is, in its own way, just as wild as the action you see in it. Let's start with the price tag. We're talking $195 million. And that's just to make the movie. That doesn't even touch the marketing budget, which was easily tens of millions on top of that. This was an absolutely massive gamble. Michael Bay wasn't even sold on 3D at first. But then James Cameron, the guy who made Avatar, basically told him to think of it as a cool new toy. So what did they do? They spent 9 months together developing brand new, more mobile 3D cameras just so Bay could run around and blow things up in his signature style. Now for the visual effects. Get ready for this number. The team at Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, they were putting in over 200,000 rendering hours every single day. Let that sink in. That's like cramming 22 years of computer work into every 24-hour cycle. The amount of digital power they were using was just unbelievable. Of course, a production this huge isn't without its risks. And this number, it represents a really tragic side of it.
$18 million was the settlement paid to an extra who was seriously and permanently injured when a stunt went wrong and a cable snapped. It's a sobering reminder that there are real dangers behind all the Hollywood spectacle.
So it's really important to remember, this movie was basically an apology for the last one, Revenge of the Fallen. Pretty much everyone, fans and critics, hated that one. So Michael Bay went on record and promised to deliver a darker, more serious movie this time around. He even specifically said he was getting rid of the dorky comedy.
Okay, so the movie's done. It hits theaters. And this is where things get really fascinating because it created this huge split between what the critics were saying and what the audience was doing.
On one hand, you had the critics absolutely tearing it apart. They called it bloated, said the script was terrible. It got a really low score on Rotten Tomatoes. But on the other hand, it was a monster at the box office, an absolute juggernaut. It proved that it didn't matter what critics thought. People wanted to see giant robots blow stuff up.
And just look at the sheer scale of that success. It cost almost $200 million to make, and it brought in over $1.1 billion worldwide. That's nearly 6 times what they spent on it. It just flew past that billion-dollar milestone with no problem at all.
And here's the funny thing. Even though the critics hated the story, you just couldn't deny how well made it was from a technical standpoint. It actually got nominated for 3 Academy Awards, all for its sound and, of course, for its absolutely mind-blowing visual effects.
So this whole thing leaves us with a pretty big question, right? When a movie becomes a billion-dollar event that people all over the world go see, and it gets recognized for its technical genius, does it even matter if critics say it has no soul? What do you think really defines a movie's success? It's definitely something worth thinking about.